Podcast Playground.
Hooray!
This is the Darren Harris Podcast. Here's your host, Darren Harris.
Hey, y'all, what's good? Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Darren Harris. This is the Darren Harris Podcast, y'all. Thank you for joining me this week. I absolutely appreciate that. How you feeling? Hopefully everybody is doing good. Check it out, man. There is something that all African Americans have in common. A lot of us have this in common, and it's more than just being black. And that is that the majority of us do not know where we come from. We don't know what our actual origins are. We don't know what part of Africa or what part of anywhere we come from. So today, I'm talking about DNA testing and some of the companies that offer DNA testing to Black Americans for this reason. So before I get into it, though, I want to ask everybody about their mental health like I do every week. I'm always concerned. I'm concerned about the people that listen because I myself suffer from mental health issues. And it is, like I said, it's very important for me to connect with people that listen to my podcast and make sure that they are okay mentally, because I know that what is going on in the world today is very taxing on a lot of people, and a lot of people don't know where to turn, or they feel overwhelmed, or they feel like their world is crashing down around them. And I completely understand that. I completely 100% get that. But what I want you to understand is that there are people that are out there that are professionally trained to help us, or help you, or help any of us really get through our mental hardships. So I want to encourage everybody, don't put it off. Don't procrastinate. And most importantly, don't deflect. If you feel like something's wrong, chances are there's something wrong. Don't put it off. Don't procrastinate. Don't think that everything is okay. Because if you think that something might be wrong, chances are there's something wrong. So do yourself the favor. Don't keep yourself from seeking help, from seeking the help that you need in order to feel happy and whole. So with that being said, let's jump into this subject today. Okay, so let me set it up for you. Trump got elected as the president. After that, they started trying to fucking eliminate blackness in America. So what I have done, and a lot of other Black Americans have done, is we have started seeking out where we're from. Because more Black Americans want to live in a place, where they don't feel threatened, where they don't feel like they don't belong there, where they don't feel like they're being profiled or followed or just talked down to, disrespected, in a country that they've pretty much given everything to. And quite honestly, I am one of those people. You know, I'm one of those people. If this country does not respect my people and the contributions that my people have made to this country, if they can't acknowledge that, if all they're trying to do is whitewash it and take away every ounce of anything we've ever contributed to this country, then fuck this country. That's how I feel. Okay? Now you could say about me whatever the fuck you want to say about me. I don't care. Democrat, Republican, you call me whatever the fuck you want to call me, but I'm not going to support nothing that doesn't support me. Period. So, and including a country. So if this country does not support my people, then why are we here trying to do our best to uphold it? Why are we here trying to do our due diligence to continue forward in an environment and in an ideology that does not value us? Why are we continuing? Why are we continuing when there is a place for us? And that place is the place that we originally came from. So a lot of people are like, oh, it's a waste of time. You know, you shouldn't, I don't really care about that. You'd be surprised at the shit that I've heard come out of Black people's mouth about trying to trace back their lineage. Some people just genuinely don't care. And you know what? To each their own. I get it. You know what I mean? If that's who you are and that's what you want and America the beautiful for you, then you know what? You do you. And I'm, no hard feelings for me. But there's something to be said about somebody who is unwilling to trace back, their origins, especially when they don't really know where they came from, or they recognize or realize that their origin story was abruptly interrupted. I was born in Morristown, New Jersey. But my people are not from New Jersey. My father was born in Miami, Florida. My mother was born in St. Petersburg, Florida. But their people are not from Miami or St. Petersburg. They're not. So, where are we from? Well, there's a few tests out there. And some of these tests out there, they claim to be on the stick, man. They claim to be on the ball with helping us realize who we are, helping us determine where we're from, helping us collect all of the information or some of the information about our ancestry. And I was super intrigued by it. And one of the things I had looked at, a long time ago, my sister, both my sisters and my dad, I think, they took, one of my sisters took the Ancestry DNA, and my other sister took 23andMe. And they both came back with our ethnicity and different percentages from here to there, and but overwhelmingly African, sub-Saharan African. So it was a little, in my opinion, I wanted to go a little deeper. And I thought it was good for a while, but then there was this company that I stumbled across, and it was called African Ancestry. And it wasn't affiliated with the Ancestry brand. It was totally brand new brand, not brand new, I guess they've been around for a while, but a black-owned brand that claims to trace your lineage back, and they can pinpoint all the way back to the tribe that you are from. And I was super excited about it. I got excited about it, and I talked to my producer about it, and we talked about it for a while. What would it be like to know, what part of Africa I'm actually from? And we both got really excited. And my producer, just so you know, my producer is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white guy, and he was equally as excited as I was to find out the possibility of where my family's origins actually started. So after some milling it over, we decided that we weren't going to go with the 23andMe. We weren't going to go with Ancestry DNA, that we were going to go with the black-owned company, the African Ancestry Company, to trace back my ancestry. And I got the test in the mail, and I was super excited. I a bunch of stuff just started going through my head about, what it could, where it could be from, and, who I could actually be, and if I was a part of royalty, all kinds of shit, all kinds of this shit. So, I sat there for a little while contemplating it, contemplating taking the test. I had it for 2 or 3 days, and I didn't want to fuck it up, and I wanted to make sure that everything was right. So, I talked with my producer about it. And the reason I did it, it was for me. But ultimately, the reason I did it is my dad is 85. And, he's still very vital, but, history shows us that everybody doesn't stay with us. And, I started thinking it's only a matter of time before my dad is not with us any longer. And that started to hurt me. It started to bother me a lot. So I started thinking about it, and I came to the realization that my grandfather was actually a slave, and he cooked. And after realizing that, and seeing my dad, and how proud of his family he is, or how proud of his heritage he is, the one thing I wanted to do for my family is I wanted to trace back and find our tribe, find out exactly, and I wanted to let my dad know for his birthday, where we come from as a people. Where did we come from? And I kept it a secret. so I took the test, I took the swab, and I sent it in. And it took a hot minute to get the results back. And wow, I think it was like 6 or 8 weeks to get the results back. It took a while. It took a hot minute to get the results back. And when I got the results back, there were some things on there that I wasn't expecting to see. And I will let you guys know what that is as soon as I come back from this break. This is Darren Harris Podcast. I'll be right back.
Our everyday lives are filled with little mysteries, from products to pastimes to long-held customs or an odd turn of the phrase. They all bring up some intriguing questions, and there's usually an interesting story behind each one. So if you've always wondered about stuff like this, then this is the podcast for you. This week, we'll take a look at something that many of us use every day: mouthwash. Who came up with the idea? Its journey is a pretty weird one. And speaking of journeys, when traveling the interstate, you see the signs for I-55, I-80, whatever. Those are not just random numbers. They actually mean something, and we'll help unlock the code. Plus, we'll toss out a few more curious questions that you've always wondered about and see what sticks. I'm Rick Peterson, and we hope you join us.
The Always Wondered Podcast.
The podcast playground. Hooray!
Now, back to the Darren Harris Podcast.
Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the show. Talking about my ancestry today and whether or not, just talk about DNA testing in general and DNA testing and tracing back your lineage. And if it's, about these, these different companies that provide this service and what they're all about and what they actually provide and what you can actually expect from some of these companies. Now, I'm no DNA expert. I'm not. I'm no rocket scientist. I'm not. I'm a fucking comedian is what I am. And but I'm open. I'm open to let people who have studied these things show me me the money. I'm all about it. So like I was saying before the break, my producer and I decided that we were going to try the Ancestry DNA test. And I did. And I took the test, and like I said, it took a while to get. And I went to the website. They sent me all the stuff. I did the cheek swab and everything, and they sent me. I sent it back to them. Took a while. I got the notice from the website that they had received my kit, and I got the results back from my DNA test with them on the 9th of April. So, what did the DNA test say? What did this DNA test reveal? So they sent me a letter, and they also sent me a certificate of ancestry. So I'm going to read the letter to you guys. And I'm just going to read it. December 9th, 2025, Darren Harris. Dear Darren, great news. Here are your patriclan test results. You have paternal ancestries with people in Spain and Portugal. This means someone from your father's side of the family was from this group a long time ago, 500 to 2,000 years ago. What does this mean? After comparing your DNA to our African lineage database and not finding a match, we compared your DNA to a global database and found identical 99.4% matches with the Y chromosome DNA of a European man. There are no African men that match your DNA sequence. At some point, 500 to 2,000 years ago, your father's line, there was a European man. Remember, this ancestry is only one branch of your family tree. It does not apply to your entire family tree. Here are the parts of your DNA sequence that we use. And they gave me all the markers and the allele size. So, according to this, I am there are no African men in this sequence. And I was shocked. I was completely shocked. They even sent me a certificate of ancestry, African Ancestry. African Ancestry hereby certifies that Darren Harris shares paternal genetic ancestry with people living in Spain and in Portugal. So I'm Spanish and Portuguese, partially. And it said that I did not have any African men, which, how can that be? Because A, I'm black. B, my dad is black. And C, my grandfather is fucking black. Blackity black. So how can it be that if I'm black, there are no black men in my DNA strand? And the short answer is there are 100% black men and black men from Africa that are in my DNA. But what has happened is a couple of things have happened. And it forced me and my wife to do a little more research about these actual companies and whether or not they're worth it. Now, African Ancestry, listen, I'm not going to badmouth the company, but I'm going to say this company is very vague. And another thing I will also say is the testing, the method of testing that they are using or that they have used is outdated. And it's been outdated. They only tested 8 markers. Okay? That's an old test with very low DNA resolution, very low resolution. Okay? But the DNA has very low resolution. But today's DNA tests, the minimum that they're testing on is 12. So they're not even testing 12. And there are other tests. There's so many other tests that you can take. Now, there are a bunch of, like, well, not a bunch. There's a few tests. Okay. So, okay, I'm trying to like put this in a container really fast. Okay. 8 markers. 8 markers isn't a lot to go on. Okay. But the results from these 8 markers, the reasoning behind them using this 8 marker test is because the 8 marker test can determine tribal ancestry. That's one of the things. It can help to determine tribal ancestry, but the resolution of the test is extremely low. So there's room for error. Okay, but the pattern that my genetic test yielded, this pattern is very characteristic of the R1b, particularly the R1b 1a 1a2, which includes Western Europe, British Isles, France, Iberia, and parts of Italy and Germany. But this is a rough guess. Many haplogroups can overlap. Okay. And especially at this extremely shallow resolution. And, there's other tests that you can take. You could take a Y37 or a big Y. There are absolutely tests with higher resolutions that can give you more detail about your actual lineage. So African Ancestry, there were a lot of, well, what I did is I went to a couple of websites to find out about them. And I should have did this before, and I didn't, because I will tell you, had I done this before, had I done this research previously, I would not have gone with this test. And, for many different reasons. And what I'm going to do now is try and make you understand why this test is not necessarily a test that you want to take if you want to really find a percentage of your ancestry. This didn't give me any percentages. Okay. 23andMe and and Ancestry DNA, they both give you percentages of what ethnic group you are from. Like my sister, she took the 23andMe test, and we came back 78% Sub-Saharan African. We came back 6% English, 6% Irish, or either 6 or 8. 6% or 8% English, 6% or 8% Irish, 2% like Scandinavian, like 2% Chinese. There was a few of them in there, but this test that I took from African Ancestry didn't pop positive on any of that. And the reason why is because it was a low resolution test. They only tested 8 genetic markers. And there are over 100 that can be tested. Now, there's a test called the Big Y700. Now that's going to get everything. Every goddamn thing. That's going to get, the Big Y700 is going to get everything. But the people take Big Y700s if they want to find out if you killed that girl. That's why they want your DNA for real. But hey, if it's going to also help me determine what the lineage where I come from, then roll it out. I'm all about it. So if you're like me and you have taken this Ancestry DNA test and your results have come back that you have no there are no African men in this side of your lineage, then I 100%, I encourage you to seek out some other tests. There are no African men that match my DNA sequence. My father is an African man. My grandfather is an African man. But this is what happened. Okay, this is just my best guess. And, I might not be right, but I think that I'm close. I think that my great-great-great-great-grandmother was raped. And there was offspring, and that offspring was male. And that Y chromosome carries all the way down. Now, before that white male, who was there? There had to be someone. There was someone because my grandmother was there. My great-great-great-great-great-grandmother was, so somebody was there. Somebody had to be there. But who was it? It doesn't go back. So there are a lot of missing pieces. There is a lot of holes to this story. And this African Ancestry, while one piece of the story, is not the complete story. So if you're out looking for a DNA test to take, I would not recommend taking the African Ancestry test if you are looking for a percentage of a particular ethnic group that you are trying to find. I wouldn't do that because they don't. Like I said, the resolution is way too low. They only test 8 markers. And that, that is an outdated test, and they are now testing 12 markers and better. So I was disappointed. I was disappointed because I honestly thought that I would come back African. Now, that is not to say that I am not African or do not have African lineage. It's just saying that the men on my father's side are non-African, which that ain't true. It's that Y chromosome that's non-African. So that's all they trace is that Y chromosome. But that does not, it just makes my lineage more complex. It does not devalue the fact that I have African lineage. It doesn't devalue that at all. It just makes the fact that I am mixed with these other things more complex. I never had any idea that I had paternal ancestry with people in Spain, but or Portugal. I never thought that because the DNA tests that my sister took from the 23andMe didn't say anything about Spain or Portugal. Didn't say anything, but this test that I took, it's got me, as Spanish and Portuguese, which now I'm looking at, trying to figure out more about that side of my lineage. Why not? It's part of who I am. How I mean, no matter how ugly or how brutal or how hurtful it is still part of my lineage and who I am as a person. Do I hate that part about me? No, I don't. I do not. Do I hate how it came about? Yeah, probably. But on a lighter note, it wasn't always by force. Back in, 500, 2,000 years ago, there were, men from those, especially like Iberia, and like there were men from those regions came into Africa, and they mated with the indigenous African women. Sometimes they chose a mate, and they mated, and there was an actual relationship. But more times than not, it was exactly what it was. It was colonization, and it was rape. And that's where a lot of us here, a lot of African Americans here in the United States, that's where we fall. We are all the products, a lot of us, I'm not going to say all of us because that's not true, a lot of us are the products of rape, are the products of abuse, a lot of us. A lot of us have lineage that we would sooner not have. For the reasoning. That's where a lot of our lineage has come from. And it is hurtful, and it's going to continue to sting for a while. But I think it's absolutely necessary for everyone to know where they come from. I think it's absolutely necessary to know and to pass down and to, keep alive the legacy of your origin. Your origin story matters. Where you come from 100% matters. Who you are made up of 100% matters. A lot of people who say race doesn't matter. Race doesn't matter. Race doesn't matter. It absolutely does matter. It completely matters. We are individuals. We are not the same. We are the same in the respect that we are human. But we are individual. Our ethnicity is different. And that matters. Our culture is different, and that matters. So, with that being said, folks, I can't really say that I'm upset about this result. Like I said, I was at first. I was hurt. Borderline devastated. How the fuck do you mean I'm not African? But that's not what that means. It doesn't mean that I'm not African. It just means that particular person is not. That particular match, that Y chromosome has European DNA, the DNA of a European man. Nothing I can do about that. I can't extract it. I can't gouge it out. And I don't think that I'd want to if I could. I like who I am. I really do. I'm not perfect. But I definitely love who I am. And if that's who I am, then I guess I have to embrace and love that too. Because I love myself. I love myself. I love everything about me. And it took me a long time to get here, especially because I suffer from major depressive disorder. So a lot of times I don't think very highly of myself. But I do. I love myself, and I love myself. And now I'm learning to love those parts of me also. So I'm going to take a quick fast break again and go to the bathroom. And when I come back, I'm going to continue with the DNA reveal. It's the Darren Harris Podcast. I'll be right back.
The Podcast Playground. Hooray!
Now, back to the Darren Harris Podcast.
Hey folks, welcome back to the show, talking about DNA testing and African ancestry today, and whether or not you have it. I talked to my dad about it. I wanted it to be a surprise. I talked to my father about it, and we sat and we talked about it, and he laughed first, And then we started talking about, my father's a very intelligent man, very, very educated person. And we broke it down. And, he was not upset about it. He was not surprised by it. But some of the things he just was not able to believe about it. But then as the longer we thought about it, the more we thought that it 100% could be a possibility. And from that, we kind of didn't get mad. We didn't get mad. I also put it into a chat group with my family, with the rest of my family. And when I tell you people were surprised and shocked, they were surprised and shocked. But now in this family, there have been 3 different DNA tests taken. The Ancestry DNA, the 23andMe DNA test, and now the African Ancestry DNA test. But I wanted to find out, since the results I got were not necessarily results I was expecting, and after doing the research and figuring out that the African Ancestry test is a lower resolution, outdated test, it got me thinking, well, what is the best test to take? What would be the best test for me to take if I wanted to find my ancestry, if I wanted to actually find out where the fuck I'm from, for real? What test would be the best test? So in 2025, I have a list of the best DNA test kits in 2025, the 8 best DNA test kits. And there is a bunch of them, and they all are for different things, okay? And I'm going to go through them here for you right now. And our best, how many is it? Okay. Let's get down to them. Number 1. Well, you know what? Let's go down. Let's see. Let's go. Let's start with number 8. Number 8. There is a test called Everlywell, and it's a wellness test for allergies, sleep, and stress. But it tests your stress levels, your sleep quality, your food intolerance, and environmental allergies. It offers personalized advice on lifestyle changes to improve your health. It offers at-home STD testing, and it has subscription options, and the results take 5 days. The African Ancestry test, I mean, when you look at the results, not the results, but the reviews, one of the things that people complained about the most is that it took a shitload of time to get back when everybody else, for 8, just to do an 8 in a 8 marker test. That's it. It took like almost 3 months for an 8 marker test, when some of these tests are coming back pretty quick. My Toolbox Genomics is number 7. Get meal and exercise plans. It has valuable insights into your nutrition and health, screens for intolerances and allergies, meal and exercise plans, and you get your results in 4 weeks. And that is My Toolbox Genomics. The next one is Self-Decode. Self-Decode tests over 83 million genetic variants. Subscription service with over 350 reports. Pro Connection model allows your health practitioner or order lab work, see your results, and more recommendations on supplements you can buy through the platform. One of the things about the African Ancestry site that kind of struck me as odd and led me to do some research was the fact that I asked, is Ancestry DNA a reliable test? And I Googled that, and I got some stuff back. And I got back specifically a kind of like a explanation that says our test is one of the highest quality tests, et cetera, blah, 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 blah. But I went right on past it, and I believe, wow, this is, they're 89%. Oh, yeah, this is great. But then once I went back, there was a word that stuck out to me in that phrase. Our tests are highest quality tests. Our tests are the word was our. The word was our. And what that insinuated to me was that it wasn't some sort of Better Business Bureau or some sort of review type site. It was them. It was them rating their own site. So in that, I'm a firm believer people could tell you whatever the fuck they want to tell you about whatever they want to tell you about it. You know what I'm saying? Especially if they know shit about shit that you don't know about. So these people were telling me that their test was one of the top quality tests, but that was from them. That wasn't from any other testers or any other companies. And there are companies out there like there's a website out there called DNA Weekly, and it tells you the most reputable companies. It gives you, and that's actually where I'm getting the information. A lot of this information about that's where I found these other DNA testing sites was from DNA Weekly. And out of the 8 DNA testing sites that I'm giving you now, African Ancestry wasn't even on the list. Didn't even make the list. Okay, so let's move on. Well, let's not move on. Let me. The one thing that kind of also stood out to me about the African Ancestry is the first thing, because my producer, he ordered the test. The first thing they asked my producer was, who's going to be traveling? And how can we set that up? They're a travel agency also. So what their deal is they connect you with your African ancestry for like $300, or one side of your ancestry, or supposedly for $300. And then they offer you travel accommodations to that region of Africa. That is ulterior motives. I didn't ask for, I don't want a flight. I just want to know where I'm from. I'll worry about the flight. What they're worried about is people finding and booking these flights. That's one of the things that gave it up for me. That's one of the things that kind of made me pull the wool out and say, well, hold on a second. That's one of the things. My wife is an analyst. That's what she does for a living. My wife is an analyst. And so, without me even having to say anything, my wife just started digging through it. Just started digging. And, she found what she should have found, which is, you guys ain't 100% on the up and up like you say you are. Or I wouldn't say that. I would say they're just not as forthcoming with certain information, because I wholeheartedly believe that if they had provided some of this information, that people wouldn't book these tests. They wouldn't get these tests. So number 5 is nebula genomics, whole genome sequencing. It decodes more of your DNA than other companies. Report covers 27 health and trait behaviors. Genome Explorer helps you learn more about your genetic variants, and bonus ancestry information, including help group mapping. The next one is Family Tree DNA. Family Tree DNA, detailed maternal and paternal lines. Map your ethnic groups, ethnic origins with accurate percentages and global and geographical maps. Deeper ancestry insights that show which DNA you share with ancient and European groups. Family Finder finds your DNA paternal and maternal matches, results in as little as 2 weeks, and prices start at $119. So, and a lot of these things are way cheaper than the African Ancestry, especially for the information that they provide. For $300, I mean, I would expect a lot more, than the 8 resolution test. But at the same time, that's what I asked for, without really knowing what I was asking for. I just wanted to know what my tribe was. I thought that this was going to tell me what my tribe was. And on my mother's side, which I have to, I would have to take that test also, which actually I'm not going to take that test because it's another $300 in order to find that out. And not for nothing, not to really get a detailed depiction or detailed DNA strand. It's just still going to be 8 markers, and I need more depth than that. We need more depth than that to find that. Okay. Number 3. Did I do number 4? Yeah, I did family tree. Number 4 is number 3, is living DNA. Best for getting meal and exercise plans. Traces your DNA to sub-regions in Europe, Africa, and British Isles. Predicts your ancestry from at least 500 years to present day. Screen for health and wellness, including vitamin needs and food metabolism. With the combined kit, both both reports ready in just 6 to 8 weeks, and prices start at $119. So it's a couple months, but you definitely get way more for way less than you did at the African Ancestry site. Way more. Way more things for not just your to find out where you might come from, but to help you with your metabolism and your health and your vitamin needs. This is valuable information. That's living DNA. That's number 3. Number 2 is MyHeritage, best affordable DNA test kit. Search through 19.4 billion of records. Bring your ancestry to life with photos, music, videos, and more. Great for tracing ancestry in Europe. Results within 4 weeks. Prices start at $89. And that's MyHeritage DNA test. And the number 1 DNA test, best overall DNA test overall is is Ancestry. I keep wanting to throw the African in front of that. Is Ancestry DNA, not to be confused with African Ancestry. Okay, it is the best DNA test kit overall. Full ancestry breakdown with accurate ethnicity percentages. I can't read this morning. Intuitive family tree builder and access to over 20 billion historical records. Tracks down relative matches from Ancestry DNA database. Results can take 6 to 8 weeks, and it starts at $99. And it's the best DNA test kit overall. Now, I think 23andMe has gone the way of the dodo. And I believe that there are other DNA test kits that are out there. And as a matter of fact, there are other Black-owned DNA test kits out there also. If you are looking specifically for a Black-owned DNA testing service. But make sure that you are getting more than just an 8 resolution test. Make sure. So there are some things that you should ask when you are looking for a DNA test, and I am going to take a quick fast break, and when I come back, I will tell you what those things are. I'm Darren Harris. I'll be right back.
The Podcast Playground. Hooray!
Now, back to the Darren Harris Podcast.
Hey, y'all, what's happening? I'm back talking about genetic testing. A few things I'm going to talk about before. I'm going to talk about how this DNA test, because people are like, how the fuck how this DNA test could have shown Portugal and Spain in African descendants. So, that is kind of, now you got to stay with me because this is kind of technical. So, number 1 is autosomal DNA reflects all ancestors. Autosomal DNA, like what you get from Ancestry DNA or 23andMe, looks at all of your ancestors from the past 6 to 10 generations, not just the perennial Y DNA or the maternal MT DNA lines. Okay, so if your results show Spain and Portugal, it means that some of my ancestors, male or female, contributed DNA more closely matching people of Iberian Peninsula, Spain or Portugal today. Number 2, historical context, the Iberian/African connection. This is where history plays a huge role. A, the transatlantic slave trade and Iberia. Portugal and Spain were major colonial powers involved in the slave trade. Portuguese and Spanish men often had children with African women on the West African coast, in the Caribbean, and in the Americas. Some enslaved Africans were first transported through Portugal or Spain even before reaching the Americas. Others were born into mixed unions where Iberian men fathered children with African women. Iberians in West Africa. Portuguese traders and settlers were in Senegal, Guinea, Angola, Cape Verde, and more from the 1400s. Then they sometimes settled, intermarried, and fathered children with local women. These mixed descendants might carry the Iberian Y DNA or autosomal DNA even if they remained in Africa for generations. How the ancestry appeared in DNA testing. You could get Y DNA R1b, which is European, via Spanish-Portuguese man. You could get mtDNA L1 or L3, African, via an African woman. Autosomal equals mostly African, but with some Spanish-Portuguese percentage. For example, lineage example, father's line is Y DNA RB1, European origin. Mother's line is mtDNA LA1, West African. Mixed autosomal DNA would be 80% West African, 15% Spain/Portuguese, and 5% other. Okay? You follow me? And 4 could be the Iberian DNA came from a woman. Yes, but historically it is less common. Here's why. European men had children with African women for more often than the reverse, but it's still possible that a Portuguese or Spanish woman became part of an African or African descendant community, or that mixed race woman passed on Iberian DNA through later generations. So Iberian DNA is in someone's test is usually from a male ancestor, but not always. Autosomal DNA can always tell you the sex of an ancestor. Can't always tell you the sex of an ancestor unless paired with the Y DNA or mtDNA data. Okay, you get that? So let me break down again how African ancestry works. They offer 2 main types of DNA tests. They offer mtDNA test, which is the maternal line, and the Y DNA test, which is the paternal line, which they'll both trace your mother and your father. Then they compare your mtDNA or your Y DNA to African ethnic group reference samples to say, for example, your paternal ancestry is shared with the Yoruba people of Nigeria. Important limitations. They analyze only one direct line, either maternal or paternal. They do not provide percentages or a full picture of your ancestry. Their results are not supported by a raw data file, so you cannot verify or upload this data anywhere else. They do not share your help group or genetic distances like other companies do. So it's very limited. Their product is super limited. Now, why people now a lot of people have reported inaccuracies, or they feel misled, and this is why. Now, a lot of people are overconfident in assignments. They might say you're from Sierra Leone based on a match to one single population, even if that DNA is shared across many ethnic groups. In reality, most ethnic groups are genetically similar to their neighbors, and DNA can't usually pinpoint one tribe with 100% certainty. So them telling you that they can pinpoint your tribe is almost kind of misleading because it's difficult. Now, there's no raw data and no transparency. You cannot take your results and verify with tools or databases. Verify it with other tools or databases. No way you can double check your help group or compare it to public projects. Many African Americans get European help groups, especially with Y DNA. Many African Americans get Many African American men, like myself, get this R1B1, which is what I have, which is European, not African. African Ancestry sometimes labels these cases as non-African origin, which can feel dismissive or vague if you're looking for a specific answer. So that's the problem. It's vague. So what do we do now? Well, what you can do is you take better tests. Take a better test. That's really what you should do, is you should take a better test. Now, that list I gave you last segment, there are plenty of tests. You can go on the website is DNAweekly.com, and they will tell you the best DNA kits for 2025, and they all have reviews. They have links to their websites. They have pricing structures, and like I said, they have all the pros and cons of everything that you can so you can do this research for yourself. Now, I've gone to all of these sites. I've gone to all of the sites, and they all have more information than this African Ancestry test. And it just is, it just is what it is. So there is another website that I go to, and it is called Trustpilot, and it reviews everything. It reviews everything. And African Ancestry is no different in this case. So I went to Trustpilot, and I found African Ancestry's reviews, and they had 218 reviews, and out of 5 stars they got 2.2. And this is what I'm going to read, one of these reviews, and I can kind of understand this. So I'm just going to read one of these reviews. And the review said, and I'm not going to give you the name, but if you want to look, it's on Trustpilot, and you can see it for yourself. And make sure, like I said, before you jump into this, make sure you do thorough research before, because if I'd have done the research, like I said, I probably would not have gone with this test. So here's this review. 99% of my son's DNA wasn't accounted for. My son asked for a test kit for Christmas in 2023. The only information that came back was he had one male ancestor of Spanish descent. Sound familiar? There was nothing there about Africa. Mind you, I am Jamaican and my wife is Haitian, and we are both clearly black people. My son was very disappointed, so for this year we got him a kit from African Ancestry. They showed that he was 1%. It showed he was 1% of Spanish descent and a total of 7% of European descent, but 93% of West African descent. My question is, how could a DNA company have missed 99% of his DNA? The answer to that is simple, is because they test with a lower resolution test. They're not looking for it. They're only looking for that lower resolution. They're only looking for that Y chromosome. That's it. Now, if you ask me, that is, it seems like a lot of incomplete information. And if they want to, in my opinion, gain people's trust, then they should have more transparency, and they should upgrade their testing methods to include some of these other groups. And that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. And I hate to. I wanted to sponsor these people on my website at one point. Not my website, but on my podcast. I wanted them to be a sponsor. But now I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can. And if I do reach out to any DNA company, there are a slew of questions that I have for them. And here they are right here. And maybe you can ask these same questions. Okay? So the first question is about the testing methodology. And number one question is, what markers or reference database are used to match DNA on DNA to an African ethnic group? And why you want to ask this question is you want to know what database they're using to compare you and how specific it really is. That's why you ask that question. Number two, how genetically distinct are the populations you test for? Do you have published data showing this? The reason you want to ask this question is many West African ethnic groups are genetically very similar. Ask for the science, not just the marketing, okay? Because that, folks, is what I fell for. And that's, unfortunately, what a lot of us fall for with this company is the marketing. We do not fall, or we do not, because we don't get the science. The science is just as important. Actually, the science is the most important. The marketing is not important at all. Okay? The science is what's important. Number three, do you test for genetic distance? And if so, how close was my match to the reference population? Why you want to ask this question is if you're being told you match a group, there should be a measurable distance or similarity. Ask how close the match really was. Number four, if two African groups share very similar DNA, how do you determine which one to assign? Why you ask this question is it forces them to acknowledge the limits of the resolution. Okay? It forces them to acknowledge the limits of this test that they're using. Okay? And this is any company, not just the African Ancestry company. Number five is about the accuracy and limits. Number five, is it possible that my results affect broader regional ancestry rather than one specific ethnic group? Why you want to ask this question is this gives them a chance to explain their true limits. Okay? Whether your result is more of a regional connection than a tribal one. This will make this happen. Number six, what is your false positive or uncertainty rate when assigning ethnic groups? Why you ask this question is you're asking them to acknowledge the possibility of error or overlap, which happens. Okay? A lot of people make it seem like, oh, this is foolproof. No, it's not. Okay? Number seven, what does it mean if another company like Family Tree DNA or 23andMe or African Ancestry DNA gives a different result? Why you ask this question is it opens up a conversation about how different tools and databases affect outcomes, because that is possible. Okay? Number 8 is about transparency and data access. Number 8, can I access my data row DNA file for independent analysis or upload it to another platform? Why you want to ask this question is because African Ancestry currently does not offer raw data downloads. This question makes that clear. Okay, it forces them to admit that they don't. Like I said, it forces them to admit that they don't do this. Number 9, can you tell me why my Y-DNA or my mtDNA help group, can you tell me my Y-DNA or my mtDNA help group with the result? Why you ask this question is help groups are why help groups are scientific and standard. If they do not provide them, it raises the question about scientific detail. They didn't provide that for me. Okay? And I'm supposed to just take them at face value. So that's why, I feel kind of leery about this. Okay? And number 10, lastly, do you ever revise results if new population data becomes available? Why you ask this question is DNA science is always evolving. Companies that update their data show they're committed to accuracy. If this company isn't updating data, that means they have what they have, and they don't want to break that. They don't want to break that, even if it means. They don't want to add new information that may jeopardize or compromise their actual product. Do you follow what I'm saying? So, it's kind of a no-brainer. Now, this right here is a tip that you can ask for documentation or a peer review. You can ask this question right here. Number 11, has your reference database or methodology been peer reviewed or published in a scientific journal? Why you ask this question? If not, it's harder to independently verify their process. Okay? So ask these questions. Be firm, but be respectful. No, you're a paying customer and you're seeking answers. Remember that. Okay? Keep all your records, and avoid like emotional language. Don't get emotional. This is a very technical thing that is tied to emotion, but do not get emotional. And don't be vague about what you want. Be specific, and don't take vague answers. Now, what you're watching for when you ask these questions to these people, what you're looking for in their answers is you're looking for vague responses like, we use proprietary methods without scientific explanation, okay? We use proprietary methods, okay? That means we're not really, they're not doing it themselves. Refusal to provide specifics about your match, distance, or DNA. Emphasis on cultural heritage or family connection instead of DNA science. That's what you watch out for, because that right there is the minutia. It's the flim-flam. They're getting away from the science to say, hey, look, this is your. You need to do more testing, okay? You need to do more testing, because that right there is not the end of it. So at the end of the day, there are these things. All right, there are these tools that help us get closer to who we are. Now, that's exactly what they are. They are tools. And while they are here to help us, there are some people out here, and even people, and I'm not saying that this is their intention. There are people out there that are here to hurt us. Now, I'm not saying that they're out here to hurt us, because what I think they're trying to do is actually very noble. They're trying to connect people with their heritage, which I commend that 110%. But what I have the problem with is their method, the way they go about it. So, at the end of the day, tracing your roots is a very, very big deal. It's a big deal, and it's very emotional, and it takes time, and it is unpredictable. So what I can say is just be prepared as a Black American. Be prepared for what you may see in your DNA strand. But keep in mind that some of these companies out there, they really want to help you find who you are. Some of these companies out there, they're just trying to sell airline tickets. Okay, remember that. There are people out here that are preying on people that are vulnerable. I fell, I'm not going to say I fell victim, because I did learn something very valuable. I did learn something extremely valuable about myself. I learned from a Y chromosome that I am Spanish and Portuguese. That's one thing I did learn. But I also did learn that it is very, very important to do your due diligence, especially when it comes to something like your heritage, because it's nothing to play around with. It's nothing to dismiss. It's something that is very heavy and could have major implications in your life and in the lives of the people that you love. So before you rush out there and take any kind of DNA test to find your African heritage, make sure that it is the DNA test that is going to be as comprehensive and as transparent. The company needs to be as transparent as it gets. So I think that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Darren Harris Podcast, y'all. I do thank everybody. I want to thank my wife and my parents for being the greatest. My parents for giving me the mindset to think through some of these things and to be tolerant of a lot of things. I want to thank my wife for being the lights out analyst that she is and finding, so much information that my dumb ass couldn't find if I tried. I want to thank my producer, Jesse Yandel, for being with me on this journey, for taking this journey. And I know, and I'm sorry, man, because I know this was disappointing for you also. This was disappointing for you, and I know it was, because we were both extremely excited, man. But I'm going to say that this is not the end. It is not the end, and you can continue to be excited because, look at me, man. I'm African somewhere. I just gotta be. So as long as you are here with me, man, and you stand by my side, we're gonna get to the bottom of it, and I promise that. So I want to thank Gentry Thomas for giving me the platform to bring my information and all my stuff to y'all, man. I want to thank that man for that, and I do appreciate appreciate the space. And lastly, I want to thank all my listeners, man. I want to thank the black ones and the white ones and the red ones and the yellow ones and everybody, man. I want to thank you all for listening to my podcast. Sometimes I know it can be a little difficult to listen to, especially if you're a particular race, because I do talk a lot about race, because if you stop talking about it, then it just continues to happen. But I do talk a lot about race, and I talk a lot about race in order to break barriers. And I want to break those barriers because I want there to be unity amongst all races. And that, believe it or not, talking through my podcast, and maybe some of you will listen to some of my podcasts and you don't believe it, but rest assured and keep the faith that that's exactly what it is I lean and I go hard because I want it to stop. I call it out because I want it to end. And it's simple as that. So if you guys are on board with me, man, I really appreciate that. And just keep in mind that the conversation doesn't have to stop here. You can reach out to me at my website at darrenharris.com. You can also reach out on my social media. I am the illustrious Darren Harris on Instagram. I'm Darren motherfucking MUFUGGIN Harris on TikTok. And I am Darren Harris, comedian on my YouTube. So until next week, folks, thank you very much for joining me, and good hunting, y'all, and good luck. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. Peace.
You've been listening to the Darren Harris Podcast. Subscribe to the show, give a good rating, and everything you need to know is at darrenharris.com.